Am I live? I guess I am live. So, we're gonna do this live with the questionnaires. Okay. I was supposed to do this last night, but we had no electricity for 3 hours due to the tornado and storms, one of the biggest storms in the US that just came. So we were right in the brunt of it. It's funny, if I showed you my security cam footage, I was like screaming, yelling, yay! And boom, as soon as this gust of wind came, I'm running inside. So, yeah, that was a great experience. So now, one of the questions from the Q&A post that I made was from Ananti Narayana Murthy. She says, please make a video on how to stay detached while pursuing metaphysical knowledge such as Jyotish, astrology. Metaphysics is represented by Scorpio, and it's so easy to get obsessed with that. And then we try to take every decision in our life based on this knowledge. We end up losing our free will until painful lessons teach us to detach. Okay. So please shed light on this role of Ketu, Scorpio, and it shares your personal experience. So the first thing, there's several different types of detachments, and it's very, very important actually. The first is the ego of an astrologer. Okay. Meaning an astrologer cannot be attached to this knowledge, cannot be attached to their own ego related to this knowledge. Okay. As long as you're attached with your ego in this, Jyotish doesn't really come. Meaning, if your mission is to become a best astrologer and you're wanting to leave a legacy, like, oh, I'm going to leave something behind and everybody's going to remember me forever, that's when knowledge doesn't really come to you. What comes to you is just surface level fluff. Remember, you can, once you go to a certain experience and depth, okay, first it's your free will. Like you're talking about free will. First it's your free will. You're doing this, you're learning this, you're learning that. Then you learn something a little bit more. And what happens is once you're at a certain level, then nature will take over. When nature takes over, okay, you cannot bring your free will in. It is going to put its own laws, rules, regulations in it. And naturally, when you progress in this particular world, you naturally lose that self. For example, especially let's say when I retire, when I'm gone and all my videos disappear, everything disappear, I have no attachment to it at all. Okay, I don't care. I don't want to be even remembered. I don't. But if you asked me this maybe 6 years ago, just even 6 years ago, right? I would have been like, no, I want to do this for the public and I want to leave these videos so they can watch in the future. And yes, there was a little bit of that ego back then, that, hey, I'm doing all this work. But once you reach a certain stage, and I'll show you how to reach this certain stage, you just don't care. You just don't. You're no longer doing astrology for the self anymore. You just are now doing astrology for the moment, not even for God, or any gods don't need astrology. Okay, gods do not care if we pursue astrology or not. It is only astrology for this moment. Like, for example, I'm making this video right now. Okay, so I am in this moment and I'm talking about astrology. And if, let's say, after I end this video and this video disappears, I would not be upset. I wouldn't care. I would just move on. I'll be like, okay, this video disappeared. I'm not going live again. I'm just going to move on to another video. This type of detachment has to come in there. This is one type of detachment. as a professional or as an astrologer, you cannot be attached to your predictions. Like, for example, like before I used to make copy of all the emails and all the feedback. Oh my God, your predictions were like stunning and this, and how did you know this happened? Now, I just don't even care. Now they come in and I just move on. How did this happen? How does this take place? This cannot take place without your free will of choosing a spiritual path. Meaning, even if you're not spiritual, let's say I have no clue about spirituality still, but I just keep, I just keep rolling the wood on the other wood. Like, for example, how Lahiri Mahasai said, what did he say? He didn't say it in Hindi, he said it in Bengali. Yeah, like banat banat baat ban jaye. Meaning, by keep doing it something will eventually take place. And the way this works is when you actually use your will to be determined on a certain type of path. Okay, and only then you start to realize the importance of not the ice, but the iceberg. You no longer feel like you need to have all this knowledge for your ego, instead of, just to understand how God and universe works. So that's the important thing. And the free will, or not even the free will, your will becomes very important. And I've seen this. Like, for example, let's say you want to test your will. Until you test your will, you cannot go on a spiritual path. Like something that you love the most, that you, let's say you start from what you love eating the most. Because this is Rahu. Rahu is lips, Rahu is mouth, right? Rahu will always be the number one planet to test your will. Meaning, what's your discipline? Will and discipline is the same thing. So it always starts, your biggest discipline will start from whatever goes in the mouth. Whether it's what you're drinking, what you're eating, what you're even smoking. So I tried my will. I'm like, okay, for 5 days, I'm not going to have a cigar. Because I wanted to see. And actually, then I figured out that that was actually the easiest thing. I'm like, I'm not even craving it just because I don't want to have it. And I'm like, I've already done this, because whenever I go out on a vacation for 3-4 days, I don't care about it. I'm like, okay, let's go to something more. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to eat meat for 5 days. Okay. Or I'm not going to eat meat for 7 days, actually. And instead of 7 days, I broke a 2-week period mark on that. Okay. And so this is how you start building the will through Rahu. I also made sure that, okay, I'm not going to drink for 6 days. No beer, no, any like fancy drink or martinis and all, nothing. And you keep yourself occupied. You go to, I stopped going to restaurants for those days where they have bars in there. So I was just going to like regular Indian restaurant, especially like Indian vegetarian restaurants, because they won't have anything except like lassi or Coke or something. Because once you're in a restaurant, you're like, oh, let me just get a beer. You build your will like that. Once you do that, it's like you're taming your horses. You're the passenger in the horse carriage, and then there's a carriage driver and the horse, and they are taking you to all the different places, in the city. That, oh, look at this, look at that, how about this? And you're like, no, I'm not. I need to go exactly where I want to go. Once you do this, your will starts building. And this, only once you have built this will, this is the only time when you should actually get into meditation. I did it the other way. I just got into meditation, got into the whole spiritual thing through Yogananda. I think the best step is to build your will first. That I'm not going to be doing this. And it always starts from Rahu. All the sensual pleasure starts from here. And once you have controlled that to a certain degree, then you're like, now I can control my will to sit. Your horses want to get up from 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and go somewhere and start doing the work and start going outside. Oh, I've got this appointment. But then you're like, no, I'm going to control. I'm the one inside that is supposed to be controlling this whole thing. Why are they controlling me? Then you're like, no, my will is I'm going to sit there for 28 minutes exactly. I don't care what you do. From there, you start building this will. So what happens with this, okay, this is where you also start to build the will to be detached from these things like astrology, especially as an astrologer. Because that spiritual practice that keeps going on, it may not show me who I am. It may not give me any siddhis. But what it is doing some change. I still get angry. I still get mad. I'm not like this peace-loving monk type person. I'm still right there who I am. But one thing that I'm seeing the change with is this detachment from everything, including astrology. Meaning like there's no mission. Like, okay, this astrology has to be done. I'm like, as long as God is allowing me to do this, I'm just going to do it. What else you got for me? Now, when it comes to your own personal will, meaning you're saying in your question that we our free will, we end up losing our free will on this day-to-day astrology things, these rituals and these all that. Well, actually, that is interconnected. If you really go to the real siddhas, real tantric people, real people pursuing God, they are so well versed in the timing that they don't need astrology. They look at the timing and they know where is the planet placed. Meaning, if you go for, it's called Kal Chakra Tantra. I'm sure you guys have heard of Kal Chakra Tantra. This is a Buddhist initiation into a particular spiritual practice for self-realization. Do you know the Kal Chakra Tantra ritual only occurs when, and this is the only reason why they do it on those particular day, when sun is in the east, moon is directly full in the west, Rahu is in north, and Ketu is in south. Only on those particular days, this particular tantra happens. So even as the group of people like Buddhist monks who are going towards nothingness, okay, shunyata as they call it, even in there, a particular timing is being used to open up certain channels of energy so the initiation process can actually give the proper results. And some of the best gurus out there may not even, they will denounce astrology, but internally they're so up high that they already know now is the right time. Something inside their spirit, some Devi saying, now is the right time for you to go on the stage and start talking to your devotees or start talking to the public. That is being used. So you cannot be feeling like, oh, I'm trapped in this world. There's no free will. Well, actually, it is your free will. Your free will itself is acting upon the alignments of the planets. Because who pursues God and spirituality, as much as we can say that, people have the free will to pursue God. They will pursue God as well. They could for a small while. But it's only when the soul has gone through such a maturity from lifetime after lifetime of redundantly going through the same thing, naturally their free will is like, now it's time for me to go somewhere higher. And so when they're born in their life, that free will is saying that, oh, my free will is what I decided before I was born. So now my free will is I want to pursue, God and all of that. And I want to pursue spirituality. And so you may be thinking, I'm stuck here with these astrological alignment every minute looking at Prashna, and then here's this person going free. Well, they're going free in their own illusion, but even they're kind of like automatically attached to that. What you are doing, if let's say you're using the tithis, you're using the varna in Jyotish, and you're doing some act, well, I'm sorry, you're actually, if you know what you're doing, you're going to be doing things the right way. So there's no need to be feeling burdened by this. Yeah, if you don't want to pursue, don't pursue. If you, let's say, want to go for a business meeting without looking at the prashna and without looking at what planet is in the third house, fifth house, and the 10th house, just go. But it's like, if you know the knowledge, if let's say I taught you that there's a hole here, you see this particular type of grass, this grass, okay, this is a grass that traps animals because it wants to eat. It's a wild grass, so it creates a 6 feet deep hole, but it's still up there. Don't walk on that grass because it can trap you inside. But now you're saying, now that you have taught me, I'm looking at this grass everywhere. I'm no longer using my free will anymore. I'm not walking freely anymore. So would you still complain in that sense? Because now that I've showed you, so you don't get trapped in that particular wild grass that creates this hole, and you're avoiding it to go to your path. Is that really annoying? Is that really being obsessed? Or is that just being smart? Because again, astrology is something that is always going to lead you from, especially Vedic astrology. Because in Vedic astrology, when you deal with these grahas and the way you are learning it, the way you learn about houses, somehow it'll always trigger some spiritual path inside an individual. Okay. So you can't be like, should a person be so obsessed? The only time this obsession can be wrong if it actually ruins your relationships with the people around you. Then it's going in a wrong direction. But if you are just using astrology at every moment, like, okay, so for example, if the hora of Jupiter is running right now for 1 hour, okay, and especially in that particular hora, the sub hora of Shukra comes in. For that 15 minutes, you want to actually start your Kriya from that moment, like your Kriya Yoga. You want to start, you will see a major difference in your Kriya when you do it in the hora of Jupiter versus you do it at the hora of Saturn or Mercury, or even in the hora of the moon. Hora of the moon, you will see if you do any meditation or Kriya, too many thoughts are coming in. It's wild. It's like horses are just running wild. So why wouldn't you use this? Okay, again, I use these things, but I don't look at it as an obsessiveness. I'm like, this is what I have learned to progress in life. I'm going to use it. And just, if you're just looking at it in a way that is going to help you progress, there's no need to feel that Ketu and Scorpio is making you feel obsessed about something. It's actually liberating you. Ketu is liberation. Ketu is moksha. Okay, and Scorpio is where you are going to die, where you're buried. So it actually helps you kill your ego, kill the self, and understand and give rebirth to a new self. And that only happens through the Jyotish. So remember, in the cycle of the zodiac, Scorpio is the one next to Sagittarius. Okay. And also Aquarius is next to Pisces. Remember, people don't get it. Aquarius itself is actually occult. It is astrology. So one leads you towards a path of higher knowledge, meaning you start walking. This is why Sagittarius is pilgrimage. It's not going to the actual ashram or to the actual temple. It's the pilgrimage to that. So you start your pilgrimage from the 9th house. You get into the 10th house, the rocky path. You get into, then Aquarius, where you meet other people walking on that path. It becomes a hilly path. Then finally you reach Pisces, where the actual temple is. So Scorpio, dealing with Ketu starts your pilgrimage towards God. This is why, especially from Sagittarius to Pisces, is the Shiva Trimurti. Shiva is what? This is the destroyer of the world. He's the one who actually renews things. So whatever your old self was is now being renewed through astrology. So if you want to get into it obsessively, get into it, where as long as it's progressing your path towards the right direction. But if you're thinking that this astrology is making me so obsessed where I'm only thinking about which stocks to buy, which investments to make, how do I make my money through astrology, and how do I get this contract going in my favor and this company loses or this person loses in that contract, yes, now you're going into the wrong path. You need to use Artha Shastra of Chanakya when it comes to making money. The first thing you should always think of whenever you're trying to make money is that how is it that the person I'm trying to make money from is getting a fair deal from me as well. If you think the person is naive and they're doing this business with you and they're only taking 25%, where you who are getting 75%, you know that the amount of money you have invested in the work that you're doing compared to this person, you should actually be getting 48%. And this person should be getting 52%. Chanakya would be like in Artha Shastra, you get 52%, just give me 48%. The moment you do this type of business dealing, this is when you start making money. You have to always look out for the other side, and then you look out for yourself. That's fair dealing, that it has to be fair. Meaning fair does not mean 50-50. That's complete BS. Fair is what amount of work am I putting in and what amount of work the other partner is putting in. Okay, so if I'm putting in this much work, okay, I have to have this particular percentage. But if you know that the other person is not getting the fair deal, this is where they stop. So whenever you're trying to make money only, okay, that's not a fair deal for your soul. When you're trying to only make money through astrology, how do I gain fame from astrology? Meaning, I'm going to look for this particular tithi and hour to upload my video for the maximum views and fame, even though my video has nothing valuable to share, and then I'm just going to go get all the material things that I want. Then that's the wrong side of astrology and obsession that you're going through. But the moment you realize that, okay, I can make money, fine, it's a fair deal for my soul and this material body that I am, making money, and I'm pursuing my spiritual path and I'm doing the duty of a householder. Now everything is great. So you should use astrology for money. You should astrology. It has to be a balance, guys. It has to be a balance. Okay, but don't ever be attached to astrology where you want to be that person that that everybody wants to revolve around. That's when you don't learn astrology. Okay, and this is when this kind of ego left. To be honest with you, that's when the real astrology came to me. And this is when the next question that was asked right below this question, where was it? Okay, so this is by Dakshata Vyas. She asked, can you share your journey since you started doing planetary mantras? So again, the mantras, that's the biggest thing. If you're going to pursue astrology, you've got to do the planetary mantras, okay, according to their dasha sequence. So you start from the sun, of 6,000. Okay, because it's a 6-year-long dasha of the sun. So 6. You just add 3 zeros in the front. So with moon, you will go 10,000. Okay, then with you will do Sattvic planets first. So moon or sun, moon, Jupiter, and then you will go Venus and Mercury. So 17,000 of Mercury, 20,000 of Venus, 16,000 of Jupiter. Then you will go to Mars, 7,000 of Mars, then 19,000 of Saturn, 18,000 mantras of Rahu, 7,000 mantras of Ketu. It's going to take you pretty much a whole year because you have to finish these mantras, each planetary mantra in less than 40 days, a fortnight. So whether you finish it in 15 days, if you can, okay, let's say if you're retired, then you can easily do, 15 malas of Shukra mantras. Not even 15, you can do 20 malas of Shukra mantras. And you can finish the Shukra mantra off within 15 days, 14 days, and start on the other one. But when you are, let's say, you and me, we're working, we're doing all that, 5 malas of Shukra every day will have you finish off the Shukra mantras between 30 to 35 days. I actually went over with my Shukra mantras. I was doing it. I just thought let's just do it for 40 days. And I went like 3,000 above. That's fine. But the thing is, the mantras are so important that they're opening up channels. They're opening up channels that probably are not even linked with your brain. They're linked with something else that opens up certain energies to be attracted to you. Then things start coming in front of you. Then you start attaining the real understanding of that planet, of that graha. And literally, once you start understanding these things, then what happens is you're introduced to other mantras outside of Jyotish. Then you get into certain other mantras that now start opening up channels that are pretty much even higher than Jyotish. That's what I've discovered. That these mantras that I am doing, I am myself in a process of doing it. They have opened up ways and channels to attain other mantras to open up other things. And those mantras are very powerful. But how do those mantras come in? They automatically come in when you start pursuing something. For example, there is another question about how to get started into spiritual sadhana, or how do you find your guru? How do you find something? What happens is once you use your will. I told you guys, I don't know which interview I told you this, or which, I think I was doing interview with Eve, or was it Hemraj? But what I was saying is that I wanted to be initiated into Kriya Yoga desperately after I read the book, and I just couldn't. I couldn't find, unless I had to go India, I had to go travel somewhere, and due to the family obligations, I couldn't. So I'm like, okay. Then I found out about a book. I read the book, I read that specific chapter of Kriya. So I'm like, okay, this is how the Kriya goes. So I started doing it. I'm like, this is it. I'm going to keep doing it. And I kept doing it for I started in 2018 or 2019. And then I did it all the way till 2022. And do you know, I was doing everything wrong. Everything wrong. It was far away from what the actual Kriya that I received from Shriyan. But what happened is the nature saw the will inside me that, this person is so persistent about pursuing Kriya Yoga that they're just doing even the wrong version of it, and they're feeling that they are on the right path. It's kind of like becomes a testing ground. And with that testing ground, what happens is they're like, okay, you have shown that you will be disciplined on this path. So here comes the real Kriya Yoga. That's when I finally got my Kriya initiation, became a Kriya Ban, and I've been persistent pursuing it, unless, let's say, if I was sick or if I'm traveling or, I'm taking care of something else, but it's been very persistent. Maybe out of the whole year and a half, I would probably say I've missed no more than 5 or 6 days of missing Kriya, but it's there, it's doing it. So this is same thing with the mantras, planetary mantras. When you start doing any mantras, anything that you want to pursue, it'll first you won't feel anything. But if you just keep yourself determined on that path, then other real things starts coming to you. Nature will always test your determination and your will. If there's no will, there's no progress in that particular path of consciousness. Unless you go through 3 million lives, okay, you literally live up to 2 to 3 million different lives, and then it automatically comes. But if you're on your journey to 600,000th life and you want to know that self, well, in that case, your will has to come in, discipline has to come in. So even if you do something wrong, but if you have complete faith in it, complete belief in it, you will find the right path. So if like somebody wants to get into any kind of like sadhana practice, let's say you want to go into understanding the highest form of Shiva. You're determined to finding the highest form of Shiva. You just start with your basic Shiva meditation. You can recite Shiva mantra, just basic Shiva mantra, and just keep doing it. Maybe you do it for 5 years, nothing happens. But then after fifth year, you go to some place, some temple, somewhere you start suddenly talking to someone. And that particular person says something to you. And you're like, oh my God, this person knows something, and you want to talk to them more. And then you finally realize that this person is a tantric Shiva devotee. And from there, that becomes a link for you to now start that first level of Shiva mantra. Then from that person, you'll meet somebody else. Then you start going to levels up and up and up. So you want to start just from the basic, without any knowledge, just start from the basic prayers of anything, and it'll lead you to the highest of the steps. Okay. So now looking at your questions, like Abhaya Mati said, Rahu and Venus in the 7th house, in D9. Well, we clearly see that there's going to be a foreign link with the spouse, number one. Okay, and especially within the context of the marriage, there's going to be many foreign travels, or your spouse will get associated with foreign communities. Their friends, their associates will be of a different culture and ethnic background. But it also shows me with Rahu, Venus in the 7th house, if you do business, definitely make your spouse your partner. Even if you have another partner, involve your spouse in it. Because the moment you involve your spouse in that particular business, you are now expanding wealth with Rahu. Because remember, Venus is the spouse, Venus is Lakshmi. Okay, especially when it comes to like having a wife. And Rahu is exponential expansion. Rahu blows things up to a whole new level. So when Venus is their money in the 7th house of partnership, number one, if you want to take advantage of this Rahu Venus, always have your spouse manage your wealth. Always have your spouse be involved in your business. If you do a job both you and your spouse get involved in giving service to people that they can be directly impacted by you. Meaning, when, let's say you are in IT, you're working in a IT field. Usually Rahu, Venus always is computer programming in IT field. Even if you're working in a job-like scenario, what you should do, start impacting people directly. Meaning start teaching young kids about programming, about AI, because of course, within the next 5 years, nobody may even care for C++ and Ruby and all these other languages or Python. It's going to be about some new AI language. You start teaching that to other people. So because 7th house is about other people. Venus is wealth, Venus is marriage. In Navamsha, 7th house represents the actual force of the marriage. Like in Star Wars, there's the Force. The Force is the 7th. When you get involved with other people, especially foreign people can be helped by you, that expansion of wealth will happen. Because Rahu, Venus is a great combination of expansion of wealth. And especially if it's happening in Navamsha, and also with the sign too, it will make a difference. Because the way you want to pursue those things, for example, Rahu, Venus are in Scorpio. You should start teaching secrets to people about computer programming. Shortcuts to computer programming that other will not teach because they feel like they will give away their secrets, trade secrets to the world where their job will be taken. And this is where that person will make a mistake. Because the more they share the secrets, the more they will find more secrets for themselves, the more they will progress. Forget even secrets or not. You will progress because of your Venus being in Scorpio. And especially if it's in Scorpio, even teach in secrecy and privacy. And with Rahu, Venus in Scorpio, let's say, never boast about your wealth. Keep it a secret because Venus is wealth. Okay, don't boast about your spouse. Okay, keep your spouse life a private life. If they want to talk about, let them talk. Okay. When, let's say Rahu, Venus are in Capricorn in the 7th house, only once the moment you start helping either your spouse in their career or helping other people with their career, your career will be at a standstill. You would notice that. The moment you, let's say, helped out some neighbor or your friend to get some kind of a job, they needed your recommendation, you wrote a recommendation letter for them, they got the job, you will see, give it about even like a month, you will see some improvement in your own career. Everything is in a fortnight at max. So give it like 40 days from the time you help somebody with their career, you will see there will be some kind of a difference and improvement in your own career. Because again, you're increasing your money. This is why the more you respect your wife, okay, like for example, your Venus is exalted in the 7th house with Rahu. Okay, but you're very stingy. You're a miser person. You will not gift your spouse beautiful name brand sandals, shoes. You will not take your spouse on some cruise and helping them with enjoying life. You will not make wealth. Every sign will have a different connotation as to the do's and don'ts. Okay, because otherwise, then that if you touch it, there's that spark that happens. So then, okay. So then I saw, where is this? So this one is Ketu in Scorpio in Lagna in D9. So D9 Lagna, okay, is the start of marriage, start of unionship. Remember, Lagna is always the start of something. Like you will see, when you got your first job, either a planet like Saturn was transiting the Lagna of your Dasamsha, the D10 chart. The Lord of the D10 chart was active in Dasha, Antradasha, Paryantra Dasha. Or the Lagna of the D10 chart was at that time transiting the Lagna or the 10th house of your birth chart when you were getting that job. So it's a start of things. What Ketu does, you will see, whenever you get into a relationship, as soon as the start of that relationship occurs, one loses oneself. You become completely devoted to that other person. There is this obsessive side towards the other person. Because the start of the relationship is the first house, Ketu sitting right there, and the Lagna is you, how you're perceiving everything in your life. So what happens is one will lose oneself, one will make headless decisions on things, meaning you smother the other person where they get so frightened and scared with your obsessiveness that they would leave. Or you start making mistakes. One gets into secretive habits when a particular relationship starts. So whenever you have Ketu in the Lagna in Scorpio, first thing you should do is donate money towards rescuing snakes. You also must go to either a what do you call Ganesha temple first. As soon as you start marriage or relationship, go and take blessings of Ganesha, because Ketu is Ganesha. Okay, and do it in secrecy, because Ketu is in Scorpio. Whenever you worship, whenever you meditate, whenever you start a relationship with someone, you want to keep it a secret. Only until that relationship solidifies into either an engagement or marriage, only then you announce it to the world. This is especially Ketu being in Lagna in the Navamsha. I wouldn't say this if Ketu was in Scorpio in the 12th house of the Navamsha. Because you are giving me this Ketu in Scorpio in the Lagna of the Navamsha, okay. This is why I'm saying this, because it becomes the starting point of that. But also, one thing you will see, there's this seesaw game that plays out with Ketu in the Lagna of the Dasamsha, or I'm sorry, Navamsha. Whenever you start a relationship, you also start losing interest in that person after a while, because you go you go with your like a serpent's mouth open into that relationship, okay, and you grasp everything at once, meaning, you know how we eat, one bite at a time. Whenever you see a snake, the serpent's mouth, it'll swallow everything in a whole, and then it's full. And then it's full for like a week, 2 weeks, depending upon the size of the animal. And so what happens is, even if you walk in, let's say, anaconda, they'll take the whole crocodile inside their mouth if they have to. Or they'll take a whole deer in their body. And even if you walk in front of them, they'll not do anything. They'll just be resting and sleeping. So what happens is, soon as with Ketu in the Lagna, person gets into a relationship, quickly, suddenly within a month, you will obsessively give everything to this person, but then suddenly you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I don't want this relationship. Internally, you'd start losing that interest because you're not fed immediately with that one thing. And so this is why with Ketu in the Lagna of the Navamsha, worships spiritual practices are extremely important, especially if you said Ketu in the ascendant in of D9 in Scorpio. You should read an astrology book daily, meaning like one page every day. This will teach you patience. Because when you start a book or a subject of Jyotish, especially Jyotish, which is Scorpio, it's an ocean of knowledge. Like I can fill this, I can have 3 more of these bookshelves, and I can fill all these bookshelves. That means you are prolonging that Ketu. Ketu is something which prolongs for a long time. It is something which is long. So when you start either a spiritual practice, you start reading 1 page of astrology book a day, it will start activating the patience and calms those senses down, which are now linked with Rahu on the other side. Because now the mouth, it's like your body's upside down. The mouth is at the bottom, the rectum is on the top. Okay. So this is why you want to balance that out. Then what is it? So Rahu's Sun, Saturn in Lagna of Gemini. Man, all the questions are for Navamsha. So of course, with one thing we see that literally with start of the marriage, if it's in the Lagna, again, we're looking at the beginning of something, right? Within the start of the marriage, the first thing that happens is that there's your expansion of your reputation occurs through a foreign source, meaning suddenly you will see that you are going to get some authoritative position after marriage, which will be foreign in nature and may actually be connected with either government, or you may actually live in a place near either a major city, like especially a capital of a city in foreign land. So let's say you're in India, right? You're living in Gujarat. With this particular placement, you may get an IT or software engineering offer in Washington, D.C. So you're going to foreign lands, you're going to a government capital to work, which also it shows that at one point in your paternal lineage, okay, your paternal lineage was connected with government jobs and work, which would have occurred especially when one of the grandfathers would have gotten married. And back 100 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, people actually got married at 18, 19, 21, 22 was considered old. Back, I remember in 1889, I still remember this conversation that, oh, she's 23 years old, and she's still single and she's still not married. It was about a neighbor talk. Somebody was talking about a neighbor, and I was a kid, but I still remember like, wow, okay, that's an old age. Because for me, I was like 8 years old, 9 years old. So for me, at 22 sounded like old age. So times change. Okay. And of course, with Rahu, Sun, and Saturn together, okay, this is one of those placement of absolute commitment and duty towards the marriage. Okay, absolute duty towards the marriage. And the ego has to be eclipsed. Your ego will get killed within the marriage. You'll be bowing to your spouse because Ketu's in the 7th, Rahu and Saturn are having Sun in the middle. They're crushing your ego. So forget who you are in the marriage. you're gonna have to give in to that ego. You cannot say, oh, I am this in the marriage, you must respect me. No, that all is going to be cursed. Why is it cursing? Because are you a bad person or are they a bad person? No, it's because of your past life karmas. That's why this alignment is giving. So now marriage is going to teach you the greatest lesson about the self, killing of the ego. Okay. Then so Ketu and Ashlesha in the 8th house, your maternal grandfather was 95% was into Tantra, occult or mystical meditation. And it also will naturally show that you yourself will pursue, especially if you're in India, you will finally find out, especially at 42nd year, your connection with Nath Sampradayas. Okay. And the other thing, you would have to be the majority of the breadwinner within the family or the household. But you also have ability to easily make a person feel guilty about something that they didn't even do. You have that capacity to cleverly, win a battle, especially a psychological battle. But you will also see with Ketu and Ashlesha, you will come across serpents, especially after sunset. Or not after sunset, sorry. During sunset time, you will come across serpents. Whether you're walking on some road, you're walking somewhere, okay, along the path. It'll be some narrow road, long road, okay? You will witness it. And the moment you witness that snake, it's an omen that your spiritual time is about to start. Something inside you will start to awaken with Ketu and Ashlesha in the 8th, not in the 7th or 9th or 12th. It's in the 8th, is because this is why I'm saying this. Okay. Lot of things with this, which again, I would only say in a private reading. And this is something you can even see. And this is actually, I will be going into the 3rd level of my Predicting Without Planets series on KRS vlogs, which I uploaded the 2nd level just maybe 2 days ago. And last night I was supposed to make the part B of that 2nd level, but I had no power, so I couldn't do anything. So here I am today, we'll try to make it today sometime. But yeah, I've posted it on KRS vlogs on my academy, Magha Vedic Astrology Academy. So Ketu, Mars, and Magha obviously will show that, first of all, maternal grandfather, depending upon who has the higher degree, would have attained a piece of land through help of their brother. And it also shows paternal grandfather especially would have gotten some kind of a cut or injury, or even a younger brother would have gotten a cut or injury, especially when they were on some mountainy or hill area. And that particular place would have been known as an ancestral land. And of course, Ketu Mars in Magha can be very explosive in anger. Very explosive in anger. But it also shows that one may pursue, especially a brother can pursue either fields of, genetics, land, real estate, or even like, what is that? The Ketu represents sawmills. One's lineage could be connected with sawmills, sawmills and factories that produces raw material. So perhaps your lineage could be connected with that. Okay. So anyway, guys, I actually have to run right now. But like I said, I'm going to be making that video on KRS vlogs today, the second level, and then we'll go to the third level. So it'll be a long particular series. Okay. So anyway, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.